Okay. Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome to another episode. So in today's episode, I want to talk about something a little bit different, but is yet super important and actually pretty relatable. I think is going to be relatable for a lot of people watching this. And it's going to be all about Trump's tariffs, but specifically about Trump's auto tariffs and about how this is going to potentially impact the car market. As most of you guys may or may not know, the idea is that when it comes to Trump's tariffs, he obviously wants to do tariffs on a lot of different products, areas, different departments inside of our country. But one of the specific areas that he's hoping to do, or has basically already started to kind of do and implement, is essentially the 25% tariff on any product that is related to cars, so the car itself, or that is simply put is something along the lines of such as like car parts, car maintenance, car repairs, because this is going to be very impactful. So if you are someone that is either on the market right now looking to potentially buy a brand new car, if you are someone that's, or a used car, again, a brand new car or a used car, because of course both are going to be impacted, or if you happen to be someone that maybe even if you don't necessarily are looking to buy a car, but if say for example you maybe already own a car, which I know so many people in this country obviously own a car because a car is a massive necessity for a lot of people, even though it is a massive big wealth killer. If you've been following this channel, you probably already know about how we've talked a lot in the past about how cars are one of America's biggest wealth killer. There's a video I made about that, so I'll put that at the end screen. If you're brand new here, maybe consider subscribing, or you can watch a little bit more to decide if you want to. But the idea really behind this is that in today's video, what I really just want to talk about is basically Trump's auto tariffs. I want to talk about the car market. I want to talk about Trump's response to the auto tariffs, so what he has to say following all of this, and most of all about how this is going to impact us and the overall economy, because I think this is going to put a lot of things into perspective. So with that being said, let's just get right to this video. But as always, before we begin, if you guys enjoy videos like this, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, or you can watch a little bit to decide if you want to subscribe. But it is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing that we're really going to have to talk about when it comes to the car market and auto tariffs is going to be really about the fact that by doing tariffs, what this is going to do is it's essentially going to increase the price of a car. It's very, very straightforward, but I think it's still really, really important to understand that at the end of the day, as we've mentioned on this channel, is that tariffs are an inflationary policy. So if you decide to implement tariffs, and in this specific case, the 25% tariffs on auto cars and auto parts, then what's going to ultimately happen is that it's going to drive up the price of tariffs, or not the price of tariffs, but the price of the car and everything in that particular industry. Car parts are going to be impacted, car maintenance, car insurance, car repairs, everything in that world is going to go up, and this is going to be very, very impactful for our overall economy. And so why I mention all of this stuff is that because at the very, very end of the day, cars are considered one of America's biggest expenses. You know, I know obviously there are some people that own a ton of cars that are probably not necessary, but at the very, very end of the day, at least for your very, very first car, if you are on the market to look for a first car, cars are a necessity. Unless you live in some kind of major city, which I do, like New York City, which is really, really awesome. For most parts of this country, for most people in this country, we need cars to physically be able to get around, just like how we need food to be able to survive, because at the end of the day, transportation is a massive necessity, which is going to force a lot of Americans to now have to take out potentially even a loan to afford these cars in order to be able to get by. So increased prices is going to be a massive one, and this is going to take a hit on a lot of people's wallets, because now they're going to have to shell out more money to be able to do this. But it gets even worse than that is that because the other reason why a lot of people are going to potentially now have to shell out even more money to afford things related to the car industry is going to be everything related to interest rates. So interest rates are a very, very important topic we have to talk about. Now, this one is very interesting because, as most people know, is that right now, obviously the goal in our country is that they're trying to cut interest rates. But because inflation is not, it is improving, but it's not improving at the speed and the pace that they originally thought it would be able to approve back in September when they started to cut rates. So September of 2024. What is happening right now is that they are still planning to cut interest rates, but they're going to be cutting it a lot slower now than they originally thought. So as a result, because of that reason, we are going to be still experiencing higher interest rates for a little bit longer than we had originally thought back last year when they originally started to cut rates. So why this is going to be related and how this is going to apply maybe in a real world example is that if you were to buy a $20,000 car 5 years ago, so back in 2020, and then you were going to buy an equivalent car for about $20,000 as well in 2025, so this specific year, although you will be paying the same price on face value for the $20,000 car as the $20,000, because again, $20,000 equals $20,000. I think that's very simple math. Because of the increase in interest rates today, people are going to be more likely to have to feel pressure to take out a loan in order to finance their car and pay for it. So as a result, because people will be taking out a loan more likely, and because people will be having to now pay a higher price for the loan because of the higher interest rates, it means that people are not only going to have to pay, and again, realistically, keep in mind is that car prices have gone up. Not for the equivalent car, because obviously cars are a depreciating asset, but in terms of like the actual equivalent car. So if we're going to talk about an example, a 2020 Toyota Corolla versus a 2025 Toyota Corolla, obviously the car is going to be more expensive because it's, a more updated version, but it also means that car, people are going to be paying more for the car price at face value, but they're also going to be paying even more in terms of the interest rates and the payments that are going to have to, that are going to come in because they are paying a higher interest rate now, which makes it even more difficult than we've already mentioned to potentially now afford buying a brand new car. What this is ultimately going to also end up ultimately doing, the next part that we have to talk about now, is that because of everything that's happening, it's also going to now lead to a lower demand of cars. And this is just very, very straightforward supply, demand, and logic with economics. If you've been just, the general rule of economics, supply and demand, which is really about the fact that because if prices start to go up with cars, people that are probably going to be less likely to buy a car unless it is their first car or the car that they have to use out of necessity. But for people that are more like car collectors or people that own multiple cars, especially in the suburbs or rural areas in our country, what this is going to do is that it's going to lead to a lower demand of cars, because now a lot of the people beyond the first car and the necessary cars that they need, they're going to feel a lot less incentivized to want to buy a brand new car. They're not going to be willing to, shell out money, or they're certainly going to now have to buy a cheaper car. For a lot of car companies, what this means is that in order to be able to survive now because of the lower, amount of money that they're going to be making because of all of this stuff, it means that they're going to potentially now increase the price of their car even further in order to be able to make profit, in order to survive, and that's going to be a very, very important thing. And so following this is that because of the lower demand of cars, what this is going to ultimately do is it's going to now lead to the next part that we have to talk about, which is going to be a higher inventory of cars. Because if less people are trying to buy cars, it means that the market and the productivity and the speed of car production is going to be going down as well. A lot of the companies that are normally able to sell out a ton of cars are now going to have to now increase in the inventory of the amount of cars that they are currently holding on to, because they don't have, or because they're not able to sell as many cars anymore. What this is essentially going to do is that it's going to tank the car market, or not tank per se, but certainly ruin and mess up the car market, because it's going to lead to a lot of instability, a lot of unpredictable moments, a lot of difficulties for car companies to be able to survive, car companies, car dealers, car sales, or just anyone that has anything to do with the car business. This is going to be impacted. I know, for example, shipping. That's another very, very big one. You might not fully think about, but the idea is that shipping, if you own a shipping company, a lot of shipping related stuff, you're going to have to rely on cars to be able to get people around, to be able to get product around, to be able to get product, inventory, goods, services, a lot of that stuff, they all rely on a car. So the price of this, a lot of things are going to now increase even further now from what we've already mentioned, from all of the different reasons that things are going to start to get even more expensive. So ultimately, what is the bottom line behind this one is that car prices are going to be expected to go up, but even more so is that why this is relatable to us, and this is the part that's very important, is that because if people are now going to potentially get forced a hand to spend more money on cars, it's going to bankrupt a lot of different people, because a lot of the people that are going to feel pressure now to have to spend more money on cars, to have to now take out a loan instead of being able to buy the car up front, to have to now pay the higher interest rates, because a lot of people don't fully think about that part. I think it's just one of those things that is just going on and that happens all the time. Then what this means is that it's going to lead to a lot of bankruptcies. People are not going to be able to pay their car payments. It means that it's going to impact a lot of people's credit score. It's going to impact a lot of different things. And I think that that's probably going to be the biggest takeaway from a lot of the things that we've mentioned already in this particular video. Now, Donald Trump did come out to speak a little bit about what his response when he started to implement these tariffs. And one of the things he says is that he is dabbling right now in debating whether or not he wants to either pause or completely cancel these tariffs altogether. We don't know what's ultimately going to happen because things are very unpredictable now. We know obviously for the last couple of months he has done things where one day he'll announce tariffs, the next day he'll cancel these tariffs, the next day he'll just postpone these tariffs by maybe 30 days. And then what's going to happen is that he's constantly on, then off, then on, then off about it. So we don't know what's going to happen, but he did say is that he is considering trying to remove the 25% tariff on the auto tariffs on cars. But we just have to see ultimately in the future, in one of the future episodes of The Kevin Show, about what ultimately happens. So with that being said, if you guys made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, that's basically what I really want to talk about. Feel free to share any thoughts, any comments, any questions, or honestly just anything below. It's always great to hear from you guys. And with that being said, subscribe, like, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.